Hi everyone! Compost is one of the most valuable resources you can have in your garden. Adds valuable nutrients to your plants, enhances soil structure, and really helps with water retention. Now you might have made your own compost, but you're not sure when it's finished and how to use it. So today I'm going to show you how to harvest your compost and how to use it in your garden. Now we made some compost in this Urban Smart Pots compost sack a few months ago. It's finished and ready to use in the garden, so that's what we're going to do today. Now compost is what we gardeners call black gold, and it's really fun to see it come full circle. So let's take off the cover of the Urban compost sack, and I love composting in this because it keeps everything contained. It holds about 50 gallons of compost, and wow, does it ever smell good. So go back and watch the video on how we made compost in here. Super easy, you can make it lots of different ways, and it's a great way to turn materials that you would normally throw away into your garden treasure. Compost can take several weeks to a few months, even up to a year to break down, depending on the method that you're using. So if you are still noticing big food chunks or garden waste in your compost that are recognizable scraps, give it some water. If it's dry, turn your compost, wait a few weeks, and then check it to see if it's ready to harvest again. So we're going to harvest some of the bottom compost first. That's usually where the best compost is, where it breaks down the fastest. And I'm just going to harvest it by kind of digging a hole here in the compost sack and getting the finest compost material at the very bottom. So you can see down in here how it is much finer type of material at the bottom. I'm just going to start putting handfuls of that into my little 5-gallon Smart Pots here so we can then use it on the garden. It smells earthy, it's nice and crumbly. It's absolutely going to be amazing for my plants. Now you notice there's an eggshell in here. Eggshells do take a while to break down. That's not a big deal. You can pull that out and use it on your garden. Not a big deal. I'm just going to crush it up and throw it into my finished compost here. We'll add that to the garden. Add good calcium to my soil. You can see here on the top of my compost pile, there's still a good amount of leaves and twigs that haven't quite broken down, but it's still okay to use that on the garden. I'm going to show you how in just a moment. So I'm going to harvest some of the top portion too, just by pulling some off, putting it into my container. I'll show you how to use it on the garden in just a moment. And you can see the different consistencies of these compost, the one that has larger chunks of leaves and twigs, the one that's finer material. And if you want much finer compost, you can always sift it if you want, but I usually don't bother to do that. It's just an extra step, and this compost will be absolutely beautiful to use on the garden. The first way to use compost in your garden is to top off your raised beds in your containers. We've done lots of videos on this. There'll be links in the video description below on how to top off your raised beds, but super handy when you've already grown in a container or raised bed and you just want to refresh the soil. So here I grew peas in this container in the Smart Pots all winter long. I'm going to be planting some watermelon in it, and the soil really does need a refresh, a fresh new boost of nutrients, and compost is perfect for that. So I'm going to spread a couple of inches over the top of my container here. And this is good if you have a pretty good amount of compost. Just pour some on and then just mix it in, and it gives an automatic nutrient boost to your plants. Now the great thing about compost is it is a time-release fertilizer. So it does feed your plants over the long haul, over a couple-month period of time. And the nutrients are slowly released to your plants, which is perfect for slow and steady growth. It smells amazing. The second way to use compost in your garden is called side dressing. No, it's not a Thanksgiving side dish, but it is like a little side dish for your vegetables. So a few months into the growing season, which we are right now, especially when they're flowering and fruiting, plants can really benefit from a little extra handful of compost around the bottom. And what you do for that is super easy. You just grab a handful of compost and you side dress it or put it around the bottom and sides of your plant. So I'm just spreading a little handful around my plant. And usually a handful is sufficient. It's super gentle and won't burn your plants. You just mix it in very gently to the soil around your plants. Water it in, and it really helps improve your soil structure, gives your plants a nice, good little dose of nutrients to help them fruit and flower. And it also helps conserve the moisture in the soil so you don't have to water as often. You give it a nice good soaking so it gets all the way down to the roots of this tomato plant. The third way you can use compost in your garden is for mulch. Now, straw and shredded leaves are typically what I use for mulch, but compost is also a very good option because it does a great job of suppressing weeds and also adding good nutrients to your soil. And for here, I'm using the larger compost with the shredded leaves and the twigs and some eggshells still in it, and just spreading a 2 to 3 inch layer here over this Smart Pot's little shorty raised bed. Looks really attractive and also will really help my soil not dry out as quickly. So here you see there's an avocado peel. No big deal. That's perfectly okay to add to your garden beds. It smells great and it looks really nice too. Water it in so all the good nutrients soak down into the plants and really helps give them a nice new little boost of growth. The fourth way you can use compost in your garden, especially if you don't have a big supply, is to add a handful or two right to the planting hole. I've got a hole dug here for my tiny Tim tomato. It's a beautiful little dwarf tomato, super productive, gonna fit very well in this spot. So what I'm going to do is just add a small handful of my compost, add it right to the planting hole, kind of mix it around a little bit. And I have really clay soil, so this also helps really improve the structure and loosen up the clay soil here. It'll add the good nutrients right to the base of the plant so the roots will really take off. So just pull out my tiny Tim, tuck it in the soil here. A nice little bed of compost. Just going to water it in to let the nutrients all settle down in there, and this tomato will really take off. Nice deep soaking. Once you're finished using the compost you harvested on your garden, you can store it back in your urban compost sack. Just dump it in. Put the cover back on and you're good to go. Now, if you're ready to build a new compost pile, you can transfer your finished compost into another Smart Pots or another container and use your urban compost sack for a brand new pile of free fertilizer to your garden. And all the links for the supplies I use in today's video are in the video description. Whether you're topping off your garden beds or containers using compost for side dressing, mulch, or adding it to your planting hole, there's so many beneficial ways to use compost in your garden. Let me know if you're composting and using it in your garden this summer. It's such a valuable resource for your plants. Head over to CallieKimGardeningHome.com for the summer solstice sale, 25% off with the code HELLOSUMMER off all Callie Kim seed collections, my books, Smart Pots garden kits, and only a few days left to get the June subscription box. It's a great one this month. People are having a ton of fun with it. Get $5 off with the code JUNESUBBOX. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you on the next video.